Hello everybody, excuse me. Hello everybody, welcome to Texas Holdem Betting Insights number 3. Still been playing a lot of poker, haven't made a poker video in a while, have not done any recording of me live playing, which I think will be much more interesting, but longer videos, but I'll show you whole tournaments. Again, I play 9 people tournaments with 10-minute blinds, big blind and small blind, doubling or increasing every 10 minutes. And so I want to do some live poker as well, like go down to let's make sure I'm in the center of the screen. But the Columbus, I'm in Columbus, Ohio, the Columbus casino, and play like live tournaments and just see how I do. So I definitely feel like a confident player, and again, you can always lose hands in poker, but I feel like I'm executing the strategy well. And how do I make the most out of the least probabilistic hands? Again, the cards get dealt. How do you manage probabilities the most efficiently? And then once you get a winning hand, how do you bet in a convincing way to get the most chips possible? And conversely, when on a losing hand, how do you identify betting strategies that are trying to bluff you, lead you in, knock you out of the tournament? So I will be doing, once I bought a house, I'm in contract with a house now. So, pretty nice house, I like it. I went way under budget just so I could have some extra money, have an extra, I bought. It was, final purchase price was $349,000. It was listed at $335,000 in Blacklick, Ohio, and just kind of where the most affordable houses, one of the most affordable housings, suburbs in Ohio was. But most of the houses were going for like, I don't know, between $10,000 to $40,000 over asking. I think 2 of the houses in the past 2 months, maybe 20 houses had sold, and maybe 2 had gone for asking. Every single one was $10,000 to $40,000 over. So pretty happy with $15,000 over, $350,000, $200,000 left over, completely liquid. All the other assets I have. So I still don't really want to live in Columbus. I do like the house; it's nice. I'm not gonna complain about that, but if I could get my real money, I can play some real poker. But I'll have a house, so I'll have all of this nonsense of where am I going to live kind of settled. But I do not want to be in Columbus, Ohio. But so they call it a 5-minute house. As soon as someone calls me in 5 minutes, I'll be moving out and renting it to somebody else. So I'm going to be giving you a tour shortly. I have an inspection later today. So on to the poker. On to the poker strategy. Should you check or bet the turn with a dominant hand? I was watching, I don't know, one of the Bali Sports channel on TV. They have poker tournaments on there. So some of these are coming from things I've watched other people play and from my own playing myself. But basically, right, I'm 100% in agreement that you should, if you have a commanding hand, for example, let's say you have King, Queen of Diamonds, and the flop is King, 8, 9, all kind of offsuits. So kind of, I would just call it kind of have a straight draw, no real flush draw, and, so I would check that, obviously, see if somebody else bets a little bit, how much are they going to bet, what are their position sizing, and so, right, if you have King, Queen, you have the dominant pair with a solid kicker, even better if it was King, Ace, but this is an actual hand being played. We had King, Queen with Diamonds, he checks the flop, which I completely agree with, and then there's a 2 on the turn, and then he checks that as well. And so would I check or bet the turn with a dominant hand? King, Queen, solid position, very confident I'm going to win the hand unless, going against pocket rockets or, pocket 3 pair and tripling up on the flop or the turn. But they probably would have betted, again, assuming they're checking back. You check and they check as well. And so, assuming they're checking back, would I bet or check the turn? I would bet a little bit. Maybe again, a position size where it looks like a value bet, or it looks like you're trying a small weak bluff, right? If I had 15-30 blinds, 15-30 on the blinds, and that was my hand, and again that'd be the second flight of our blinds of the tournaments I play, I would probably bet 60 to 90 tokens or chips, and I would bet a little bit with a dominant hand on the turn and not check it to the river. And the commentators of the tournament I was watching were they were saying, throw out the rope more. I think it's more convincing because if you throw out a very small bet on the turn, it looks like you're just trying to skimp away with the hand with a very weak bluff. And then when you bet heavy on the river, they're either going to re-raise you to see if he's really bluffing or not, or they're more apt to think that since you bet a small amount on the turn, then you're just kind of doubling down on your weak bluff. So I think the best way to play a dominant hand is to bet small on the turn and not simply check it. Ace 4 versus Jack 6. Why would I like hitting Jack Jack on the flop as opposed to Ace Ace with a 4 kicker? Again, pretty much coming from one of my tournaments, just these face card, low off card, no suits, no real flush draws, no real straight draws, but Ace Ace, again, because I hate Ace low card, so easy to get into a betting frenzy or just being confident with Ace low card at the beginning of your playing strategy. But basically, if I hit Jack as the high pair with the 6 kicker, I don't really care about the kickers with these off hands, because somebody else is probably betting Ace King, Ace Queen, 10 Queen, King Queen, King Jack. And so in this example, King Jack would be bad. But these face card low off cards with no real flush draws, straight draws, if I hit that as a top pair, I'm typically betting pretty strong after the flop. Because I don't want to get, maybe they turns an ace or a king or something, makes my jack not the high pair, so I like to take down the pot if possible after the flop. And if I hit Ace 4, I would check that to see if somebody else has Ace King and then coming up betting heavy. So that's why I would like hitting Jack Jack as opposed to Ace with a 4 kicker. Forcing a pre-flop raise to fold as the betting dwindles. Somebody else raises pre-flop, they have that Ace King suited, they're feeling good, they come out and raise, and again with a good hand I almost never raise pre-flop unless the blinds are substantial, or somebody else is raising, I'm re-raising, or it's at a point in the tournament where I don't care if I'm going to go out, or it's heads up where people might be more likely to call. But somebody comes out and bets, a 4 blind or a 3 blind raise to the big blind, and the flop comes, and then they bet a 1, just the big blind, and then the turn comes and they don't bet at all. You're seeing their betting strategy kind of dwindle. Again, that's why I don't like raising pre-flop. If you miss everything, it doesn't matter what your pocket hand is. And so once you see that betting start to dwindle, then do a 3, 4, 5 bet to the blind, assuming it's appropriate to your chip stack, and then typically they will fold if they actually have dwindling chip stacks. But dwindling betting like that, especially the pre-flop raises, is pretty obviously they did not hit whatever they're raising. Be wary betting post-flop with a small pre-flop raise and 3+ people in the hand. And so, if somebody comes out and maybe they just double the big blind, maybe triple the big blind at blinds when they're not substantial, and then there's a lot of people in the hand. And then let's say you're the first person to bet after the flop. You just don't know what's out there. And so at that point, I want to bet anything. If anything, maybe just do literally the big blind. If it's 30, 50 chips and it's insignificant to your chip stack, just literally stir the pot. I do that just again. Maybe even if I hit a middle pair, even a high pair, even flop, Jack, Queen, Ace. It's like even if you have Ace King, maybe somebody else has Ace Queen, so it's like you don't know where the 2 pairs are, you don't know where the 3 pairs are. With a lot of people in the hand, somebody's gonna come out and be commanding if they have something substantial. So post flop with a small pre-flop raise, somebody's going off something, and the betting can get aggressive. The example I have down here is Queen 10 offsuit, and the flop is Ace Queen 9 with a flush draw and a straight draw. And this is a real hand. So it's just like I hit the queen middle pair, 10 off kicker. I have a straight draw, not a very good one. I don't have a flush draw. So it's just like I'm not going to bet that queen at all. Maybe throw in the absolute minimum, the big blind, and just see what happens. But if somebody comes out and bets aggressively to that, I would instantly fold that hand because there's way too many draws and not nearly enough convincing. And again, with a lot of people in the hand, those are just stuff I just back off and will let them duke it out themselves. Raise the turn or the river with a dominant hand for the biggest pot, or flop. two pair versus low pocket pair in a disconnected board. So let's say I have two pair. Let's say we have a flop of 3-7 king. Let's say I have 3-7, no real flush draw, no real straight draw, and somebody else. What am I raising? And somebody else I think is betting the king. Would I raise? I'm assuming they bet the flop. Would I raise the flop? No, I would call the flop. Again, assuming I'm confident I have the dominant two pair, he's betting a king. I would let him continue his betting progression. The turn comes out and it's a 10 offsuit, no real flush draw, really shitty straight draws, and then he bets the same amount or a little bit more. Would I raise then? Maybe. No, I'd probably just call. If he's betting aggressively and I'm confident I have the winning pair, I would call the turn as well. Wait for him to bet or check the river, and then raise or bet big or re-raise to a bet there, or raise to a bet there. So that's what I would do there. Should you bet a hand being double checked to the river? Basically, both you and the other person, flop comes check real quick, turn comes check real quick. And then on the river, I would say if most of the time I would bet actually at the river, maybe the turn at a small amount, even if I have a weak bluff or just maybe a high card. It just depends on how fast they're checking, literally. Because a lot of times people have it in their minds, if they get to the turn of the river and there's any chips come out, they're already going to fold instantly. If I'm on the opposite side as well, I do the same thing. So I don't think you should completely check all the way, even if you have two 7 offsuit or 2-5 offsuit, you go through the whole hand and you have your 5 high card there, and they're just snap checking. I would just throw something in there. I think more often than not, you're going to take down the pot if they're already convinced themselves they're just going to check unless there's a bet. 3 of a kind versus flush draw, ace high, post flop. How would I play it? Never feel priced into a hand, never. So again, I really like pocket pair 3 of a kind. Really hard to identify that. Really easy to get somebody having ace high, king high, high off card, ace or king pair, high off card. You have pocket pair 3 of a kind, 3-8s versus 3-8 king on the flop. They have ace king. They're betting heavy, but then they flop. There's a 1 card flush potential. 4 diamonds on the board, 4 spades on the board, 4 clubs on the board. Never feel the price in the hand. Love my 3 pair, fold. So any of those, we've talked about neutralizing hands. Anytime you have the dominant hand and then the turn comes, the river comes, and it's a 1 card straight draw, 1 card flush draw. Pretty much all of those times I'm folding my hand. And then in no scenario in poker should you ever feel priced in. It just never makes sense. Always stick to the probabilities and taking down the pot and never get into emotional tilt. Maybe you have a little bit of landscaping in the background, but I'm almost done, so we're gonna keep going. Identifying a post-flop bluff. Again, similar to the decreasing betting strategy of a dominant pre-flop raise that doesn't hit. But how do I identify a post-flop bluff? I don't know if they just come out really aggressive, but even if they do come out really aggressive, I'm not going to call a bluff on a hunch. I don't think that would be a diligent response to a betting strategy. So basically, if they bluff, I would say if they bet really heavy after the flop and you do call, and then their betting dwindles substantially on the turn in the river, that might be a post-flop bluff. But you would just have to be in a, maybe they 4-bet, they go big blinds 30 chips, then they bet 120 and you call that on a draw and you don't hit the draw and their betting dwindles, then I'd probably raise or make a bet on the turn or river, probably on the river, not the turn, and that's how I'd identify a post-flop bluff. Final betting insight, managing a middle pair hand. Say you have 10-6, kind of have a shitty straight draw, no real flush draw, and the flop is king 10-2, no flush draw, no real straight draw. Again, with a king out there on the board, Because again, it's not the, we've talked about if I have the Jack 6 off card versus the Ace 4, but the Jack would be the high pair, so we have the middle pair. I'd bet a little bit. I'd bet like 3-bet. Again, 90, if I have 30 chips as the big blind, early on in the game, don't have much to worry about, it's not like substantially consequential, I'd bet 90 chips to see. Make it convincing enough where it's like you have something. If they don't have a king, they're probably going to fold. If they do have a king, they'll probably call or raise. If they raise, I'd probably fold. If they call, I would go to the turn, bet the same amount on the turn, and they would either fold or raise more likely, because they're either thinking I'm bluffing a king, or they actually have a king and they're just going along with my betting to raise me on the river. But I would just keep it small but convincing enough where it means something, but it's not going to blow up your chip stack if you lose, but really try to draw out to see if there's a higher pair out there. So now the landscaping is getting really going right as I'm done with my talking points. So those are my betting insights for Texas Hold'em Part 3. Thanks for watching.